Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday night loving kindness meditation at the Dharmabum Temple. My name's Travis. I'm substituting today. Alex will be back next week. Yeah. So tonight, whenever I sub, I rarely sub in on Wednesday nights. I like to do maybe a slightly different version of loving kindness meditation, or usually I end up doing forgiveness meditation. But that's been the topic for my class on Thursday night for the whole month, so I'm kind of over it. So we'll probably do just a variation of loving kindness meditation. I think tonight I want to focus on the sensation of loving kindness. We can start with that, and then maybe go into more of the a little more working with phrases and stuff like that. But I'd like to touch on the actual physical felt sensation of it first. Yeah. So real quick, I'll go through kind of the different heart practices. What is loving kindness? What is metta? So in Buddhism, there's 4 Brahma Viharas, which are divine abodes or sublime abidings. There are 4 states of mind, 4 states of the heart. So the first one is metta, or loving kindness, goodwill, unconditional friendliness. That's the practice we'll be doing tonight. The second one is karuna, or compassion. And it's the response of loving kindness when it encounters suffering. When metta encounters suffering, it transforms into compassion. Instead of seeing someone suffer, and if we don't like that person, maybe we have this feeling of like, oh, I want them to suffer even more, or something like that. Compassion is intended as the antidote to that kind of mind state that may arise. Then the next one is what happens when loving kindness encounters happiness or joy, and it's empathetic joy, mudita. And it's this quality of being happy for the happiness of others. The Dalai Lama once said, and I'll probably butcher the quote, I'll give it a shot. If we're happy only for our own happiness, we have very little happiness to work with. If we're happy for the happiness of everyone around us, then there's much more happiness to work with, much more happiness to go around. And then the final one is upekkha, or equanimity, and it acts as the check and balance on these other heart qualities, making sure that we don't neglect our own basic needs in the pursuit of perfecting these heart qualities, right? We still have to look after ourselves with ease. And when we're generating these qualities for all beings, spoiler, we're included in all beings. We're a being. And sometimes that can be hard to remember because we tend to be so outwardly focused, even with these heart practices, right? Upekkha, equanimity, literally means to be standing on a mountaintop looking downward. I always think of it as kind of like the difference between watching a parade pass at the street, watching each part of the parade go by, versus watching the parade from a helicopter. When you see it on the news and they're flying the helicopter around watching, we're less surprised by all the twists and turns because we can see them ahead of time, right? We've stepped back a bit. We're not so personally invested. It makes it easier to work with. So those are the 4 heart practices. As I said, tonight we'll be doing loving kindness practice. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. For those of you following online, hello, welcome. I'm probably not going to be as good as Alex is about engaging with the chat, but if you do have any questions throughout tonight's class, feel free to put them in the chat. I will read and look for questions. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the meditation. Um, in terms of posture, if you're sitting on a chair, helpful to have both feet flat on the ground. Maybe not fully utilizing the backrest, you're less likely to fall asleep. I like to bring the shoulders up and back and allow them to drop into a really sturdy posture. The tongue can be pressed up against the roof of the mouth, gently against the back of the teeth. Prevents the buildup of saliva, which can become distracting. Throughout the meditation, the mind will wander. That's normal. The mind's not going to stop wandering any more than the heart's going to stop beating or the lungs are going to stop breathing, if we can help it. So, yeah, with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Closing the eyes, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. Noticing if deep breathing feels good. If it does, you can keep on breathing in this way. If it doesn't, you can switch things up, maybe even deeper or more shallow, heavier or lighter. Just taking a moment to notice what feels best for the body right now. Noticing if there's any tension around the process of breathing, any sense of forcing the breath in or squeezing it out. See if you can consciously relax that, allowing breath to flow in, allowing breath to flow out. Expanding this awareness to the forehead and the shoulders, noticing if there's tension there and consciously relaxing all the way through the in-breath and all the way through the out. Softening the forehead, dropping the shoulders. Softening the area around the eyes and unclenching the jaw. And then guiding awareness down into the sensations in the chest. Noticing how breathing feels in the chest. Notice if there's any sense of tension or tightness in the chest, in the area around the heart. And see if you can consciously relax that as well, all the way through the in, all the way through the out. If you want, you could even imagine the breath flowing through the tension, dissolving it away bit by bit. And with this housekeeping done, with the heart spacious and relaxed, sensation in the chest relaxed, you can set the breath aside. And we can begin working with loving kindness. Start by calling to mind a memory that gives rise to a pleasant sensation, a pleasant emotion in the heart, a fond memory of some kind. whatever it may be. And while calling this memory to mind, notice the emotion and the sensation present in the heart. How does this memory physically feel? As you sit with this sensation, you can allow a gentle smile to rest on the face, smiling not only with the mouth, but with the eyes as well. And you can stay with that sensation in the heart for as long as it lasts. And when it fades, you can call that memory up into your mind again, or a different fond memory if that's one's losing its juice. Calling the memory to mind and then settling into the sensation in the heart. Really allowing that sensation to fill the entire chest. And you can call to mind an image of yourself as a child and allow this sensation to wrap around them like a warm blanket. If you want, you can use whatever phrases you would normally use, or you can stay with the sensation of sending this to your childhood self. May I be happy. May I be free from inner and outer harm. May I feel safe and protected. As you wrap this childhood you in this sensation of loving kindness, you can allow them to dissolve into the sensation. Then calling to mind someone whom it's easy for you to have these feelings towards, a benefactor, a very close friend, a pet. You can call them into your heart and wrap them in this sensation of loving kindness. May you be happy. May you be free from inner and outer harm. May you feel safe and protected. May you find true happiness within. Continuing to send this sensation of loving kindness to your benefactor. If the sensation runs low, you could think of a fond memory you have with this benefactor to give rise to it again. And then allowing this benefactor to dissolve into the feeling of loving kindness. That sensation in the heart. Next, calling to mind a neutral person, and someone you don't have a strong feeling about one way or the other. Maybe a cashier you saw today or someone walking down the street. You can call them into the heart and wrap them in this sensation of loving kindness. Even though you don't know them that well, you know that just like you, they want to be happy. They want to be free from stress and pain. May they be happy. May they be free from inner and outer harm. May they feel safe and protected. Allowing this neutral person to dissolve into sensation of loving kindness. Softening the forehead and the shoulders. You can call to mind someone who's caused us difficulties in the past. Don't pick the mortal enemy or anything like that. Just someone we've had difficulties with before. You can call an image of them into the heart, or just in front of you if you prefer. And you can radiate this sensation of loving kindness to them as well. Acknowledging that if they were happier within, they wouldn't cause pain without. So may they be happy. May they be free from inner and outer harm. May they feel safe and protected. Noticing how it feels to send loving kindness to this person. And noticing if there's any tension or resistance. Seeing if you can consciously relax that and then send the loving kindness again. allowing this difficult person to dissolve into the sensation of loving kindness, and calling to mind someone whom you have harmed in the past, and wrapping them in this sensation of loving kindness. May they be happy. May they be free. May they feel safe and protected. And lastly, calling to mind, you can allow this person to dissolve into the sensation of loving kindness. And you can call to mind an image of the earth. You can call that image into the heart and wrap it in this sensation of loving kindness. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings feel safe and protected. May all beings find true happiness within. And finally, allowing the world to dissolve into this sensation of loving kindness, and allowing yourself to dissolve into this sensation of loving kindness. Taking the next few moments in silence to open the eyes and stretch. never in a rush to leave the meditation. As always, after the meditation, if anyone would like to share how that experience was for them, whether you found it easy, difficult, enjoyable, or not, or whatever you're sitting with in this moment.
I really liked that you said if they heard us, that they were probably hurting. Just makes me take on a different perspective. And I was kind of angry this week because I found out my sister didn't invite me to her wedding. But then I thought of this class and I just I'm at peace with it, and I prayed for her and I wish her the best, and I can just be at peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, when I first did this style of metta, or the way that we went through a slightly modified version of it, I was really taken aback by when it went from someone who's harmed you in the past to someone whom you have harmed in the past. To me, because I was sitting there in the meditation, and there was some level of me that was thinking oh, I'm such a good Buddhist. I'm giving loving kindness to this person who's harmed me. I'm up on my pedestal and I've never done any wrong. And then when it's immediately followed with the someone whom you have harmed in the past, and it's oh, that's right. That kind of knocked me off my high horse, and I really liked that about it. Yeah. And it's something I wouldn't even have noticed normally, but within that context, it's what made me directly notice, oh, I'm being condescending when I'm doing it for the difficult person. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it. I was like, oh, that's right. Who did I harm? Oh my God. I'm not perfect. Ooh. A little inventory.
Yeah. That's why we do that one after we already have done it for ourselves too. We don't want to. Yeah. Would anyone else like to share? Yeah.
It took a little while, but this person who sort of brought me joy, it was nice to be able to sort of think of that and being sort of separate enough that I didn't feel that immediate sort of sense of nostalgia that I normally feel, wanting to be back there, wishing, or sort of the regret that that's not still there. Mm. And it was nice to think that I could recall that memory and have it be just that, sort of memory in itself, and not sort of have all these extenuating feelings. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I was surprised at how difficult it was to deal with the person that I'm having difficulty with. I'm oh, whatever, let's send all this. I'm in a flow of sending to this, the little one, the big, everyone, myself, and then I hit this wall. I literally hit a wall with this person, and it hurt, and I was tense, and it was almost like a shock, an electric shock, of bouncing back at me. It was just hitting me. It was like bouncing off this person, hitting me back in the face. It was painful. And I was really shocked at how painful it was. And then it relaxed. It could relax a little bit, try it again. And it went so much better. Even within that span of 15, 20 seconds, I was like, oh, wow, it still sucked. but I was amazed at how much better it went from the first try to the second try. I'm like, oh shit, I can do this. Okay, next time I do this, and the next time I do this, and the next time I do this, I can do this. So, and I was present in the room with this human being, and it was wild. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really fascinating. That's why I wanted to do a kind of a more sensation-based loving kindness meditation. I think it's really helpful. It's the most helpful when we get to like the difficult person or the person that we've harmed, because that's when the tension really starts to build. We're not getting too much tension when we're thinking about the person that gave us our coffee at Starbucks this morning, unless they got the order wrong or something. But there's not that much of a charge there. But with the difficult person, it can be really intense. And the way that the body will respond to mental stimuli with tension, and it will respond with that tension even sometimes with like pleasant mental stimuli too, but with unpleasant mental stimuli there's a lot of tension of kind of the body tenses up like it's bracing for impact, like you said, it like bounced off of them, came back at you. And that's a lot of that is the body having that resistance or that fear of like, what will happen if I genuinely engage with this? What happens if I open this up? So there's kind of that like bodily resistance, like we're climbing the roller coaster and we're all tensed for the drop. And so working on that level of sensation for myself in my practice has been the most helpful, because when we can check in with the sensation, it's a hell of a lot easier to just like drop the shoulders and relax the forehead than it is to untangle the complicated web of our preferences. Our preferences and our conditioning and all of that's a lot harder to deal with than just dropping the shoulders and relaxing the forehead. But the really cool thing about the brain-body connection or the mind-body connection is dropping the shoulders, relaxing the forehead is in some ways almost as effective as untangling that web, or it provides the space for that web to start to untangle on its own. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Would anyone else like to share?
Well, I have a question about, like, when you describe people as melting into, which is hard for me.
Yeah.
Can you just share a little bit more about what you're thinking?
Fuel for the fire. So within my mind, it's kind of, that's the first time I've given that instruction in a guided meditation. But usually the way that I'll phrase it is send that person on their way. Like once we're moving from like our benefactor to a neutral person, to be like, send your benefactor on their way and then call to mind a neutral person. But because we were working on like the level of sensation, I didn't want to give a suggestion that kind of felt like removing something. I wanted it to kind of feel like progressively absorbing into it. And within my mind, the way that was feeling is kind of, I jokingly said, fuel for the fire. The fire being that pleasant sensation, that sensation of loving kindness. The dissolving the child self into that sensation of loving kindness was intended to kind of be a tricky backdoor to get us to do loving kindness for ourselves right now. Because if the child dissolves the way into it, we're the child. And then we're with that sensation of loving kindness. And then as the benefactor dissolves into it, it kind of strengthens, at least it felt for me that it strengthened that sensation of loving kindness, rather than like taking this person who quite possibly was one of the people present in the initial memory we used to give rise to the sensation of loving kindness, and removing them from the equation felt kind of strange. So it was, since they were part of that sensation, just let them become part of that sensation. I know this is a bit abstract, but it was something to just play around with. Does that kind of address what you're asking? Or?
Yeah, well, I just had, varying results with different individuals. Yeah.
I considered stopping the dissolving after the benefactor, but I was like, we might as well just.
Yeah, the child self.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sherry shared, I enjoyed this take on the meditation, including the addition of someone I have harmed. It helped that was towards the end when my heart had expanded. Yeah, definitely. We don't want to start with the difficult person or realize that one of the difficult people is us. But yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
this is kind of random, but in the last 2 weeks, I've noticed like all the apps on my phone, they're all powered by this platform called Meta. And so, Meta, you said it's loving kindness or?
Yes, METTA
Oh, okay.
is loving kindness. META is rebranded Facebook.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, oh, all these like apps are like good to like meditation and goodness, but okay. Huh. Okay. Thank you.
Great jobs.
Does anyone have any questions or anything? Be happy to answer any questions, or whether it's about loving kindness or any other Buddhist stuff.
With loving kindness, and kind of, I guess, accessing that, is there like something that you might do to, while you're on the freeway? You know, kind of, I'm trying to be better at that, like daily moving meditation, driving thing, you know, where I'm loving for the first time, someone cuts me off, second, maybe third time, and then I lose it.
Yeah.
Still, you know, I'm getting better, but is there?
So yeah, I have a fun story about that. So when I was really getting into like the body scanning meditation and recognizing patterns of tension, so there's patterns of tension throughout the body, and these patterns of tension, when the pattern is fulfilled, gives rise to a habitual tendency, a habitual emotional reaction. So there's all sorts of patterns of tension throughout the body, and they're different for every person based on our conditioning and our past and all of that. For myself, with road rage, I struggle with road rage. I have pretty bad road rage. I know it probably might be shocking, but I really struggle with that, and not as much in recent years, because I've recognized through like the body scanning meditation, I recognized my pattern, the pattern of tension that for me results in anger. So a pattern of tension will start somewhere and then end somewhere else. And when that cycle is completed, then it's like the body hands it over to the mind, like, here's your signal. It's time to get angry. And for me, the pattern of tension would start as tension in the shoulders, and it would move down the arms, and then it would move into the hands and become a fist. And when the pattern of tension was fulfilled as the fist, anger would arise, because my habitual tendency for years when I was younger is get angry, punch something. So then that became the pattern of tension that my body kind of recognizes as anger. And the interesting thing is that pattern of tension, it's necessary for that pattern of tension to play out for the emotion to arise. And that might sound kind of strange, but the emotion, the sensation actually fabricates or gives rise to the emotion in the mind. The physical sensation in the body creates the emotion in the mind. So the way that I went about this is, when I was driving down the freeway, I had a small percentage, drive safely, a small percentage of my awareness on the shoulders, because I knew that's where the pattern of tension starts. So I just would constantly make sure my shoulders weren't raising up. I would consciously relax my shoulders. And that was one of the first times I did that. Was I was driving to the temple from my parents' house. It's about a 20-30 minute drive. And normally I would have got super pissed off at least like 3 times. But that day I was driving down the freeway and my shoulders were bobbing like the whole trip, but I didn't actually get angry. Anger didn't have a chance to arise, because the pattern of tension that the body correlates to anger wasn't fulfilled. Because I relaxed the shoulders, because the pattern of tension starts in the shoulders, it can't gain any momentum down the arm if the starting point is consciously relaxed. So that's something that really helps me. In general, in terms of working with any emotions or any intrusive thoughts, there's almost always a combination of tension in the forehead and the shoulders, along with whatever our unique special patterns of tension are. So you can always check in with the forehead and the shoulders. But it's helpful when we're angry to do something like a reactivity journal, where we jot down, maybe we won't do it when we're angry, but maybe we'll do it after we've cooled down slightly. We jot down what that felt like. We noticed what the anger felt like for the body, what parts of the body were tense, things like that. And made it much easier to then recognize it within the meditation as well, because I kept a historical record of every time I was triggered by something. So that's my advice for that. Anyone else? Any questions or comments or anything? You have time for one more.
Do you still keep a reactivity journal?
Not anymore.
Oh,
I've been kind of lazy with that lately.
okay.
But I also felt like I generally know the patterns. I could definitely probably refine the patterns a little bit better. But I know my general patterns of anger being like down the arms, disgust starting as tension in the stomach and moving up into the chest, and a bunch of other things. But it is very helpful, especially when getting started with a practice, to become more in tuned with those patterns of tension. That body awareness is really helpful. The other cool thing with the reactivity journal is you can then prepare yourself, because you start to notice you start to notice what your triggers are, and then you start to be able to recognize when you're about to go into a situation that's going to excite those triggers. And sometimes the triggers are really subtle, and it takes some time to actually take hold of them. Some of the triggers are just a blinking neon sign, and then some of them are a lot more subtle. They're the fine print beneath the sign. So yeah, it's really cool, because then you get to know, okay, this is what's going to happen. This trigger in this meeting I'm going into, or this conversation I'm about to have, will cause tension to run down whatever path. So I can be in this meeting and I can keep a portion of my awareness wherever it needs to be to constantly cut that pattern of tension from reaching fruition. Yeah. So, with that, we'll go ahead and close. We'll close with a dedication of merit, and then we have some short announcements. If comfortable, please join palms. May any merit gained from tonight's meditation and discussion be dedicated to all beings in all directions without limit or exception. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings feel safe and protected. And may all beings be at ease. Metta karuna mudita upeka sangateya cetasa chaturisam bharatva virati samamunaro pavena samanamaro pavena samasangharo pavena sote hantu nirantaram.